Today, we are joined by Patricia Yanez.
Yes.
Who is an incredible marketing media guru.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I want to give that background just a little bit so people know what is happening on this episode. No, we're not talking about Katrina still being friends with her life partner's exes. That was the past episode. This episode is actually all about us learning about marketing and the power behind marketing and why having a strong campaign can make or break a project.
I did have a role in The Last Dance, which was iconic.
What other projects were you a part of that you felt created great impact?
One of my favorite projects was The Greatest Mixtape Ever, which was about, for anyone who's unfamiliar, the story of And One and street basketball in New York City. Partly because I grew up in New York City in the 90s and I remember some of these moments and the lines for sneakers and just this incredible influence of culture and professional basketball today.
You also worked on The Captain, right?
I did.
The mini-series for Derek Jeter.
Yes.
How was that?
That was amazing.
Okay. So what was the thought process behind the campaigning, the marketing behind this?
The biggest piece that we walked away with, again, after looking at data, because everything's rooted in data, people were a little skeptical, right? If anyone knows Derek's story or anything else, he's very media trained and he's very guarded with good reason, right? As someone who's in the limelight. And so there was, from the research that we had pulled, there was a lot of suspicion that, you know, was this going to be like a 7-hour highlight reel and like puff piece, or were we actually going to get real and talk about, you know, the nitty gritty? And so our communication goal became challenge the assumption that people have about the film. Whether you thought he was going to get real or not, whether you thought he was going to talk about the A-Rod thing, if he was going to mention gift baskets, like how do we tease that enough to make people come in?
Are we being formal or not being formal?
Formal.
Okay. So today we are joined by Patricia Yanez.
Yes.
Who is an incredible marketing media guru. Okay, so I want to give that background just a little bit so people know what is happening on this episode. No, we're not talking about Katrina still being friends with her life partner's exes. That was the past episode. This episode is actually all about us learning about marketing and the power behind marketing and why having a strong campaign can make or break a project. Okay, so Patricia, you've been in this space for a very long time.
Yes.
Give us a little background so that people understand the great work that you've done and why we all need to take tips from you.
Well, first, thank you. I'm very flattered. And thank you for having me here. My journey is a very atypical one, for at least from what I've heard from everyone else that's been in the industry. I thought I wanted to be a lawyer when I was an undergrad.
Okay.
Fun fact, I'm not a lawyer. I was working in nonprofits for a while, and I got to the point where I was supposed to take the LSAT. And something in my gut was like, I find law fascinating, but this is not my thing. But I was always almost done with my degree. What am I going to do?
Wow.
So I was like, you know what? I like this nonprofit thing. I'm just going to keep working this. So I worked for Latino Justice. I worked for Hispanics in Philanthropy. I worked at a small school in Staten Island as their director of development. And then that is kind of where I discovered my love for marketing. I ended up doing all these extracurricular activities that were, you know, throwing events on for the 25th anniversary, starting a communications newsletter, redoing their website as like my extracurricular activity. And I was like, how do I just do this for work? So that started my journey in exploring marketing. And I landed a job at the Walt Disney Company in distribution sales of all things. And when I was approached about the job, about applying for the job, I was like, no, I'm not a salesperson. Like, you got the wrong girl. Like, I am focused on marketing. I know exactly what I want to do. And the person gave me a really good piece of advice. And they were like, well, if you want to be a marketer, you should probably learn how to sell something first. And then I was like,
interesting.
Was it like Wolf of Wall Street? Like, sell me this pen.
Yeah. Honestly, it was a process. I had like 6 interviews. I had to do a project. I had to present. And I was starting all over again because I had already been in my career at that point for like 5 years. And I was entering this world of media that I knew nothing about in terms of television distribution. And I was like, all right, I'm going to go for it. And I got the job. So now it was like learning the TV industry, how money's made, not just from ads, Apparently, that's why I thought all money was made in television. And then I was also doing a part-time MBA at night.
Wow.
Also,
Oh my
fun fact, I
gosh.
did not finish the MBA.
It's okay.
There's a lot of starts and stops here.
Right.
But then from there, I did a lot of rotations within the Walt Disney Company in marketing, partnership marketing, event marketing, brand marketing. And then my last stop was consumer marketing for original content and films.
So what is the difference in all of these things?
The first chunk of my career was a lot of B2B marketing.
Okay.
So thinking about how ESPN or Disney would market their products on a distributor's platform. So
Got it.
made up scenario would be like, how do we promote this Disney Channel original movie with Comcast with their Xfinity customers?
Got it. Okay.
And so you're thinking about like, how do we promote the things that are important to us, combining with the things that are priority for them, and do something that's mutually beneficial for both companies. And it was like a problem solving job, that
Got
role.
it. Okay.
Wait, I have a question. You mentioned the LSAT. Did you
Yes.
study all the way up until you had to take
No,
it?
no. I
'Cause
did
I've
take the
heard that's-
GMAT.
And that's another lawyer thing?
GMAT is to get into business school.
Oh, okay.
So I was in Baruch for like a semester and a half.
Uh-huh.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it.
All right. So let's be smarter, Katrina. Let's get smarter right now. Okay.
I'll try.
So which part of, I guess, your career, well, let's focus on the most recent, I guess, part of your career and your journey. What did you like the most? Yeah, whether it's the last role or the different roles that you've had, which role did you enjoy the most?
Okay, so the one role I had within what was known at the time as Disney and ESPN Media Networks, they had built like a tiny agency within the organization that was 3 or 4 of us. The goal was to come up with bespoke experiences, events, and mailers to support the sales team's distribution and relationship building with our clients. So this was a different time, like compared to now, like we had huge budgets and we were doing things like coming up with concepts, like sending electric guitars to all of our clients that were like, had stickers of all the networks slapped on it. And the theme was like that 2011 rocked, right? And it was like all about how all of our networks did really well. So we just really got to come up with these out of the box ideas and bring them to life to help the team build relationship and to, keep reinforcing the value of our portfolio. Anytime like a new show launched or a network or a holiday gift, like I literally had a creative challenge every time. And I just got to come up with wild
Right.
and make it happen.
That is so cool.
What was
That
your
was one of
favorite
the coolest
activation
jobs.
you did? And it doesn't have to be a
God.
seating kit. It could be an experience. Like we've gone to a few that are really fun. And
Yes.
what's the favorite one you've done?
There was one, we were launching the Longhorn Network at the time. And we took a group of executives to Austin, where the network and the school is based. And we did like a whole weekend. And the start of the weekend was, if you know Austin, Texas, the best thing to go to is Allen's Boots. And so you go to Allen's Boots and get like a proper cowboy boot fitting. And so we closed down the store. That was the first stop. We had a private boot fitting and like shopping experience
That's
for
so
them.
cool.
And the rule was they had to wear the boots out of the store.
Right.
So the idea was to get them in the mindset of like a fan for who would want the Longhorn Network. And from there we went to dinner at Vince Young's Steakhouse, who's an alum and former pro player. We had a private steak dinner there, and he also came to the dinner.
Wow.
So it was
How
just like
fun.
a way to set off the whole, trying to get someone in the mindset of like why people are excited about this. And then the next day was, of course, like a tour of the facilities and the locker room, and we went to a game. And so that was like it from there. But just the idea that we were thinking about like, how do we get these non-Texans
Right.
to appreciate like what this is like and literally walk in the footsteps of
the boots?
what somebody would want to experience with this network.
What are some of the big projects that you were a part of that, you are proud of the role that you played in it?
I did have a role in The Last Dance, which was iconic, not just for the film itself, but I think for the moment in time of which it happened. So, a lot of the groundwork had been laid before I joined the team, because I joined the team in November of, what year was that? 2019. They already had launched a teaser at that point, and they were getting ready to kind of roll out a larger plan. We had, I think, bi-weekly calls at that point with like media planning, creative, we're making, designing poster art. And then the pandemic happened. And then we were all remote, and we were planning on being remote. And we figured out how to, one, work remotely, to finish a film production like remotely. So we're, bi-coastal, getting in cuts 4 a.m, like watching them down, cutting trailers because the film was supposed to premiere in June and they moved it up to April. And so our timeline got condensed. We have out of home planned. Who needs out of home when everyone's stuck at home, right? So you're like reallocating budget and you're forced to really be nimble and think quick. And so I'm really proud of that time because, it was a lot of late nights, early mornings, but the team came together and we literally just figured out like, how do we get this thing out there, but do it right and just not assume that we should just kind of keep the other things the way they are and reallocate money because we didn't know how long it was going to last. We were trying to be conservative with dollars to kind of help the company offset, potential layoffs or anything else that was going to go on. So like, a multi-million-dollar budget gets reduced down to a couple $100,000 instead.
Big cut.
Huge cut. But like really focusing on impact, right? Over volume. Volume is nice and maybe it makes people feel good, but what is really going to drive the needle at that point? And it wasn't necessary to do everything that we had initially planned to do because the market was a lot less crowded, right?
Right.
What else was anyone watching besides Tiger King?
Right. Yeah. You know what I remember about The Last Dance? And I've always heard that, especially in this day and age, a lot of marketing will use influencers or memes. One of my favorite memes from The Last Dance is Jordan looking at
the
his
iPad
and he's going like this. Yeah. So I guess my question is that something that you guys were doing or were those memes happening organically?
A lot of them were organic. We have an entire amazing team that's focused on the social aspect that I cannot take credit for.
Right.
But sometimes, we got to a point where we would watch film and we would say like, that's going to be a meme or like, this is going to be a moment. I think there was Once Upon a Time in Queens, which was about the 86 Mets, 30 for 30. There were these shots of Keith Hernandez and his cat like kept coming in the set. And I was like, oh my God. I mean, he's already a thing like his cat, but these moments are going to be memeable. So we would flag them sometimes for our social team when we would send them cuts of the film and say like, full respect, you guys know what you're doing, but like we have a feeling that these moments might be the ones that catch fire. Just to support them and help a little bit. And they would look at the film as well. Sometimes they would agree or disagree, or they would catch other things that we missed. So sometimes we're prepared for them and sometimes we're surprised by what takes off.
For The Last Dance, what would you say was the collective goal when it came to marketing at that point? What did you want people to take away from the campaign that was out and about? So for a lot of us consumers, we don't know we're being marketed to, right?
All the time.
And it's happening all the time.
Yes.
So for you at that time, helping come up with this idea within the team and everybody working hard on it, what did you guys ultimately want with the campaign?
There are several KPIs. There's of course things like ratings and how many subscriptions we can sell and things like that. But from a brand marketing perspective, it's attribution. So if you remember, this was technically in conjunction with Netflix as a production. And a lot of our focus was we were going to have the first window of the film. And then there would be another moment where Netflix would have complete rights to the film. And then we would both be holding the rights to the film. So the goal was attribution. Like, how do we associate the success of this film with ESPN and not have it go as much to our friends at Netflix, right? Because, we're investing a lot in this. So how do we make sure that happens? And so, we've had a long history of really successful documentaries, especially with 30 for 30. This was not a 30 for 30. So we had to make sure that in small ways and in large ways, people were giving this or crediting back this moment to ESPN as a network.
Got it. Did you feel like it succeeded in that way?
Yes, we have the data.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
There's always data.
What other projects were you a part of that you felt created great impact?
One of my favorite projects was The Greatest Mixtape Ever, which was about, for anyone who's unfamiliar, the story of And One and street basketball in New York City. Partly because I grew up in New York City in the 90s and I remember some of these moments and the lines for sneakers and just this incredible influence of culture and professional basketball today and some of the things we see. And so it was just an opportunity to look at all sorts of form of art, right? Like the street style, music, how those worlds come together, And we were able to do things like a Spotify playlist, and there was a companion podcast, and there were just, we worked, the team worked with an artist on like designing the artwork for the film. So there were just all these moments and opportunities that you don't always get to do with other films because inherently what the story was. So I feel like that one was really special.
You also worked on The Captain, right?
I did.
The miniseries for Derek Jeter.
Yes.
How was that?
That was amazing.
Okay. So what was the thought process behind the campaigning, the marketing behind this?
The biggest piece that we walked away with, again, after looking at data, because everything's rooted in data, people were a little skeptical, right? If anyone knows Derek's story or anything else, he's very media trained and he's very guarded with good reason, right? As someone who's in the limelight. And so there was, from the research that we had pulled, there was a lot of suspicion that, was this going to be like a 7-hour highlight reel and like puff piece, or were we actually going to get real and talk about, the nitty gritty? And so our communication goal became challenge the assumption that people have about the film. Whether you thought he was going to get real or not, whether you thought he was going to talk about the A-Rod thing, if he was going to mention gift baskets, like how do we tease that enough to make people come in? Because documentaries, you can Google what happened, right? There's no need to sit down and invest 7 hours or 10 hours in the case of The Last Dance to find out if the team won or if he made it to the Hall of Fame, right? So the hook has to be who's sitting down to talk in the interviews. Are they talking about something they never publicly spoke about before? Are they going to have people that they had static with, and like really kind of hash out those issues? That becomes the interesting part of the story. Obviously, there's great talent in like weaving together that narrative, but there has to be like a so what. And so we're pulling that out as like, this is going to challenge the assumption that you have about his story and who you think he is and what you think he's going to discuss. And so that became like the premise for everything that we did.
Were you pleasantly surprised at how transparent, the story was told?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I mean, I never heard Derek Jeter curse before this film. And so there were moments where he got angry, telling story, and that, he was obviously very composed because he's just like that kind of a guy, but he got real. His wife sat down, they talked about hardships and challenges they had with like having their children and like, the balance of family and like his schedule and like, you don't have to talk about those things, right? This is about his career, but he really did like pull behind the curtain and allow us, or I should say the filmmakers, to be part of that. And so we were very sensitive, as we always are too. These are people. Right? And so there are things you can do as a marketer to exploit certain stories or like mislead the public into like something scandalous. You guys work in production and editing, right? And we always wanted to be honest. We never wanted to be like mean-spirited. We never wanted to mislead anyone for what they think they were going to see versus what was actually there. And then just being respectful of these people as human beings that are opening up and telling their stories. And, their kids will see this one day. So like, what does this look like?
In your experience, what would you say are some of the biggest challenges in creating original content for sports audiences?
The budgets. And I mean that for licensing. So from my marketing side, when for anyone who doesn't know, when you license footage for a film, it doesn't mean you can use it for marketing. So you have to, yes. And when you pay for the licensing for marketing, it's far more expensive than when you have that clip in a film, like 10x more expensive. And so you have, sometimes people are, there are shots I want to use or bites I want to use that I either can't clear or I can't afford to clear because of everything else that I have on my slate. Like I have to make really intentional decisions about what we're going to do. Music clearances also for trailers, really, really expensive compared to using them in film. And so there are times I would have loved to have gotten like tracks from, artists and things like that to really put them on and be part of the storytelling if we're doing a commercial, but I can't afford that for 6 weeks, all means in media worldwide, because it's going to go on social, it's going to live on YouTube, or then I have to swap it out. I have to think a lot about the investment we're making and if it's crucial to telling the storytelling and what that takes away from other projects I have coming down the pipeline to determine if it's really necessary and if it's going to make impact.
Why is a marketing campaign so important?
I think you have to decide how you're going to launch something, right? It's like if a tree falls in a forest and nobody hears it.
Right. Right. And
you got to tell the people. And it's hard because it's so crowded, this environment now, right? We're like constantly on our phones. I mean, we're in New York City. There's advertising everywhere. I'm also very much like a skeptical marketer. Like every time my husband will come home and he'll be like, "Oh, did you see this thing?" I'm like, "That's marketing. That's not right." Like, don't believe the hype. And like I'm very skeptical. I'm like, "Is this really going to get it whiter, cleaner, faster?" Right? Are you just trying to get me to spend like $1 more?
Right. Right.
But it's crucial. It's crucial. It's also the best marketing is when it's not really marketing. Like people don't really like ads, right? They like storytelling. They like moments of culture. So if you get your marketing to that point, you've won.
How do you get to that point in your experience?
I would say you have to think, well, one, rooted in data first and foremost. And you have to think fan first, fan centric. People say customer centric, but you really have to do like live, walk, run in those shoes to understand how you may connect and create a moment. It's like that, the McDonald's campaign, which is incredible, where they have like the celebrity meals. Like that is brilliant. There's no new products at all.
Right.
It's just being repackaged, right? This is literally just a marketing vehicle that speaks to the consumer who would appreciate that this is like Cardi B and Offset's meal.
Right.
Like that's all it is.
That is a great way to break that down. There's nothing new about the food.
Absolutely not.
Do you find that since you have this background in marketing and you do it, that as a consumer, you're more weary of purchasing a product, or, you're just like, yeah, this is something at McDonald's already. I don't need to buy the Cardi B meal. I'll just have a cheeseburger and fries, please, even though that is the exact meal.
No, I love marketing. Okay. I love it. I find like good ads and I'll like repost them on my Instagram. I'm like, this is brilliant, or like this was amazing. Like I love this.
Does it make you purchase the product more, or consume it?
I'm an easy sell. I Instagram shop a lot.
Right.
Like
Me too. Oh gosh.
Fashion, clothing, like that is my jam. Functional objects too. I'm not like a shopaholic, but I'm always like curating. So I'm not a hard sell.
Okay. Me neither at all. Which piece of content that you were a part of helping produce, create, ideate for that had a huge, significant impact on ESPN's audience, where you saw it? I mean, I'm imagining the ROI in these situations is hard to tell, or is it, how do you know if something has been successfully marketed for?
We do a few different things to read. So there'll be like a read on social, like don't even get me wrong. Like when something's premiering, I'm like on Twitter, now known as X,
right?
Like scrolling the comments, like trying to see how people are responding to it. It's always exciting when we're trending. So that's always, I'm always like, yes, like we did a thing. So I would say one success is partly that, is like the chatter, because we didn't have when I was there a consistency that people could anticipate. So like if your show comes out like twice a week, like Tuesday, Friday, people can anticipate. With the 30 for 30 schedule, it's a lot reliant on the live sports schedule. And so it's kind of,
that's hard.
It's idealized, right? And it's definitely planned for. But it's not like a cadence like the last Friday of every month. It's just not possible to do that. So the marketing has to do more work to get someone to watch, as well as the subject matter. So if that happens, I feel like that's a little bit of a win, first of all, because now we're competing against regular like Bravo Housewife and like regular cadence of This Is Us or whatever it is.
Whatever it is.
There's an anticipation and a community built within that. So that's one. Two, we would say we do look at projections for linear and then for first streams and engagement after 30 days. So it's different windows that the content lives. The live linear is when it premieres on channel on TV with commercial breaks, and then you have it on our streaming platform immediately afterwards with no commercial breaks. And then it's available also within your cable VOD for a while. So we check all of those things, and we have projections based on when it's premiering, the subject itself, and try to do some comps. When I say we, I mean like our research team. And then we try to understand like what we expect. And then we looked like, did we beat it or did we not? and we compare the marketing, right? For this film in the same time frame with maybe a similar subject, did we do the same amount of effort or not, or could we not? And look at some of those factors to see what might have impacted.
What would you say is the most, I guess, impactful type of marketing? Digital? Is it linear? Is it billboards? I'm sure each situation is different, but at this point, what do you feel has the most impact when it comes to marketing?
It depends on what you're trying to do.
Okay.
So I would say, the traditional marketing media is still relevant, right? So if you need broad awareness, new brands launching, things like TV, billboards, those are still great. The problem is they're not measurable, right? But you need there's like a marketing funnel for anyone who's like done some business school or whatever. So at the top, you have like awareness. You need people to like know who you are. Tylenol needs to be like at least in the back of your mind somewhere and you're thinking about pain relievers. And then as you go down and you want people to take action is where digital plays really well because you can actually click. You can actually ask someone to take an action, but it might be hard for them to take an action if they don't know who you are, right? So you need both of them working in concert. Obviously, the budgets are very different for those types of things. Digital tends to be a little bit more affordable. And it gives you a lot of great data. You know exactly how many people clicked, how many people saw, what did they do? Did they bounce when they went to your site? And you can make adjustments from there. But you do need some of the top funnel work happening at the same time to get someone to pull them through all those levers.
So right now, is there a product, a show, or a whatever, and you really love their marketing? Or it doesn't even have to be right now. It could just be of all time. Your favorite marketing campaign.
Oh my God, of all time, Nessa?
Okay, you can pick your top three.
Most memorable and stick out in your head.
The one that I think about, which I used a lot, and I do some guest lecturing at NYU. This is one about case study because it talks a lot about like trolling and like this or that. So the battle between iPhone and Android is one of my favorites. And that has leaked into some of their advertising. And Samsung put out an ad, which is probably like a 60-second ad. There's almost no sound on tape, like no bites, no people speaking in the ad, but it kind of just goes back and forth from the last 10 years of pain points that have happened with Apple users. So it's like a girl and a guy that are cast in the commercial. She's the Samsung Android user, he's the iPhone. And so like there's different scenarios, right? They're playing by the lake, they both get pushed into the lake. He fishes out the phone and he's like throwing in the rice and she takes hers out and it's still working. And they keep going through these scenarios where like they're trying to watch a show together and he's got like, the earbuds with like the connector thing,
right,
with one thing dangling and she just like has it propped open and she's listening to it seamlessly, like cord free. And so they keep walking you through all these scenarios, everyone waiting in this huge line outside of the Apple store and he's just like walking into Samsung, buying it and leaving.
Right.
And so the end of the episode is like the call to action is like upgrade to Galaxy. The sound design, the song choice is like almost about a love, like a misguided love. So to me, it's like very slick, very understated, like so shady. And I have everything Apple.
Right.
But I was like hands down to the pettiness of this ad. I loved it. It was one of my favorites.
Do you like creating campaigns for a product or a story more?
I'll say that even if it's a product, there should be storytelling.
Right.
So I would say I like storytelling.
Storytelling. What story would you like to create a campaign for?
Oh my God. Maybe Fabuloso.
Really?
You know the cleaner?
Of course.
I don't know. I've just started to think. I've never seen a campaign for Fabuloso in my whole life, but like everyone in the Latino community uses it.
So in a situation like that, do they even need to spend money for marketing when already the product does well?
Well, I don't know if it does well. I know it does well with a certain group, but like, could they go bigger? Like, could they be mainstream? Maybe I could get you there, Fabuloso. Call me.
Where you at? Maybe they don't care. Maybe they're good with where they're at.
Possibly.
Right? Because we all know it.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, we do, but
we all see it when we go to the store.
But we're talking about non-communities of color.
Okay, wait. And we're also in New York City. So
correct.
Okay.
So they don't have Fabuloso at
National.
Whole Foods?
I want to say no.
But Whole Foods doesn't have,
a lot
anything
of things.
else that's not their brand.
Not their brand. So
Yeah.
I don't think that's a fair assessment. But, Okay, so maybe that might be a world you want to explore.
10-second elevator fabuloso pitch.
Go. Oh my God.
Go. It's a test.
I need more time.
Okay, 15 seconds. No, but they're good, man. I use Fabuloso. I have it in my house.
So that's what I mean. Like maybe they're so good. They're so,
ubiquitous.
They don't need any help.
They're like,
I don't believe
they're
that.
like PY. By the way, Patricia's nickname is PY. Maybe they're like PY. It's okay. We got this.
I mean, I would say you can never get too comfortable, even if you're at the top, right? Like there's always somebody coming for you in terms of a brand, in terms of talent, right? There's always, you think about all the artists we've seen, right? We had Lil' Kim, now we have like Nicki Minaj, we have Cardi B. Like there's always someone coming up who could fall into that archetype or who can fall into, and no disrespect to all those women, right. But there's just always someone coming up behind you, even as a brand, right? At ESPN, I would say we were the leader in sport, but not without, people kind of nipping at your heels the whole time. But that's how you know you're in the spot, but you got to stay there.
Right. I mean, I always say that the hardest part about anything is not achieving it, it's staying at it.
Maintenance.
And I'm going to be honest, most people can't. And I think that's what is a deciding factor between greatness and not, is the consistency of it.
I would agree.
Okay, so with your expertise in digital marketing, what trends do you believe will be dominating the space over the next few years?
I would say AI. If you're afraid of it, don't be afraid.
Right.
I was texting you the other day.
I love
Use
AI.
these things.
I'm aware that there, of course, and with everything, there's pros and cons, but I think it's great.
No, I mean, I've been using it a lot. There's different flavors of AI for different needs. So I've been playing with that too. But honestly, even just for my personal life, like it's like mom's helper. So I had a Girl Scouts camping weekend. And the weather changed. This is like a few weeks ago where it was like really cold and then it got like super warm and it was raining a lot. And I was like, what the hell? I'm a city mouse. I'm like, what am I packing for this like 4-day trip with my child? So I went into AI and I was like, I'm a mom going with my daughter away for the weekend in this area. Here's where I am now. What do I need to pack for these activities? And it literally just like spit out within half a second everything I need to, like, looked at the weather for me. Like it was having like an intern.
Mm-hmm.
That I
could ask, right? Like a checklist.
Yes.
Of
And then I
points?
could be like, you know what? A second prompt from that, like now do it if the weather hits 80 in the afternoon. And it would give me other things like that I would just
So
be like,
great.
and it was
It's
just
so
done
great.
for me. So that mental load that we carry,
Right.
some of that I just give to AI now.
It's great. It's great.
And I'm like, thank you for solving this for me.
Right.
Do you worry that AI, you said we shouldn't be afraid of AI.
Yes.
How do you think it's going to affect the job market or especially in marketing?
I mean, it's going to impact. It's impacting now. I don't think as many people are using it as they should because a little bit of the fear, but I think it can be your friend, right? Like I think I would start to use it as, I'm coming up with strategy and then like kind of vetting it through another source. It's like another thought partner. It's not perfect. May get there, but it's not perfect, but it'll help you kind of go broader or think deeply. I know you guys were using it for vows a few episodes
Wedding
back.
vows. Yeah, it was great.
It wasn't bad,
really good.
right?
Yeah.
Like
It's great.
it's not bad. So I would say don't fear the AI. Lean in, figure it out. Everyone else is figuring it out too.
Now, I also know that you were part of different initiatives promoting diversity in media. How did you do this and why is it important for you?
I feel, and I'm going to use this word, but it's not pejorative. I feel like there's an obligation, right? Like I'm here today because of so many people who told me to do the job in sales, right? Who gave me a chance as a girl from working in nonprofits, not having a marketing degree, to show them that I could do it, that I could figure it out, and that I had the grit and the passion and the interest to do it. So I feel I spend a lot of my time thinking about like, how do I give back? How do I make time? So if anyone's ever like emailed or DM'd me, I've always been like, yes, we'll have coffee. Yes, I'll talk to you.
That's right.
I don't know if it's going to change your mind or what have you, but I'm going to tell you what my experience has been. And if that's helpful to you, then I've done my job. I'm not standing here alone. It's on the shoulders of everyone who's ever been like, let me help you, or let me help you answer this question. Let me figure this out.
That's really good because I'm not a small talker and I'm not a let's get coffee person.
Oh, Katrina is not going to help anymore.
So I can't ask you for help?
Well, it's different because you're a stellar, amazing human being and I already know that. So we're good. But just the fact that you do that, like you are, I love the word that you use, obligated.
Yes.
Like think about everyone that's put you on.
Yes.
Like if you just decide one day you don't want to do it, think about all the people that had the coffee with you, put your, said your name in rooms.
Yes.
Like that's such a big deal. And I never thought of it that way.
That is a huge part of my, quote unquote success. That is how I'm here today. There's a lot of conversations that have happened in rooms that I'm not in with women and men who have advocated for me or have spoken up for me or defended me or advocated for whatever direction I was going in. That is not unnoticed, and it's impossible, I think, to move forward in life without it. So who am I to say no?
Right.
That's how I feel about it. I've had total strangers sometimes like DM me on LinkedIn.
What if they're killers? What if you?
Well, we don't like meet up in public.
Oh, okay. I was like, how do
but
we
like,
know
I'll
this
have a
is safe?
conversation.
Right.
Yeah, we can always have a conversation.
That's so awesome.
What would you say is your dream role in this space?
I don't know what it's called exactly. I think actually I'm lying. I think I recently have figured out what the role is. I think it's called context strategy, where I'm basically doing creative problem solving, like helping build the briefs for the brands and like doing dope shit.
That's right.
Love it.
Right. Yeah.
I would love that. So
yeah,
I don't know where that exists in a place for me, but that's what we're looking for.
I think that should be your new bio, doing dope shit.
Period.
Period. That's it.
And a little, background on how Patricia and I met. We actually met because you were working on Colin Kaepernick's Spike's project that they have going on together at ESPN. That's initially how we met. And your energy and just your vision was so clear and it was amazing, which is why we're still friends till this very day. And for the most part, I know I'm just very attracted to people who work great, who do whatever it is that they're doing at a high level. That's just, I have realized this over the years. Why am I friends with certain people or why am I whatever? I am attracted to people who just want to do whatever they want to do at the greatest level possible. Whatever that is. It could be a painter, it could be whoever, but there's some admiration behind that because of the dedication that somebody has. And that's something I noticed about you. You cared about the detail. You were very clear on what you wanted. You listened, which is so rare, right? I mean, we're talking about a very important project to Colin, which is why he signed on to do it with ESPN, right? And we know that Colin hasn't spoken about really anything for the most part, right? I mean, yes, here and there, if he's published a children's book and his graphic novel, yes, he'll do interviews for that, which he has. I know he's talked about obviously wanting to continue to play, and he still wants to play, something that he has worked so hard for. And he still trains and he still works hard. His agent still reaches out to teams. Colin reaches out to teams and all those things. So I remember you listening and understanding the importance behind Colin's story and really taking the time to thoroughly think the best way to get his story out there. And it wasn't a job. I didn't feel like it was just a job from you. I felt like you genuinely cared about Colin's story and you just can feel it, right? And I think it's important in this space that we work in that you work with people that really want to do right by your story, right? And so it's important to get with the right team that's going to create a campaign for you and share something that's so personal for you. That's why I wanted to talk about Derek Jeter, the captain, because you're sharing somebody's story. We're talking about people, humans, emotions, what they've gone through. So in the time that we've worked together, what was your favorite part and what was memorable and what was the hardest part?
I would say favorite part was we were on a Zoom and I think we were talking about concepts for key art. And I was like, had this moment of like, oh, I have this idea. And I was like, I want to do this like lenticular poster where he's like this pose and then you walk by and it's this pose. And I paused after I went on this like riff and everyone else's faces were like, and Nessa was like, why? Like she was feeling it. And I was like, okay, hold on. Cause there was like a pregnant pause.
Right.
And I was feeling good about it. And then I was like, oh man, like the director of art and photography is going to kill me because this is like, we did not discuss it prior, but I just had this moment of like inspiration. No, I was literally off the cuff and I was like, the team's going to kill me. And I was like, if we can secure this and if this makes sense, but that's the thing. Nobody was mad.
Right.
Like everyone after the call was like, oh yeah, like that's cool. And I was like, look, I just want to set expectations. We did not discuss this prior. I don't know we can do this, but like this would be dope given the concept and like the theme that we were trying to go for. It could express that without having to say it, right? Like how do you use the medium to kind of be part of the message? It was what I was trying to get at. So that was one of my favorites because, you know, it's a Zoom with Colin Kaepernick, Nessa, like these are heavy hitters. And she said my name. She liked my idea. Like, that's great. You and Colin and your entire team, I should say, is always so gracious. Like anytime we presented anything to you guys, and I would say for the most part, that's been the experience, but it's not always the experience, where there's like, thank you for putting this together, or like, appreciate you guys giving this thought. Like there's just always been a energy of partnership. Right. Like we're here to do this together. There's never been ego or I don't even know, frustration. Like if there ever was frustration, there's just always been like a, you know, even if we don't agree, there's one like, how do we get there together kind of a mood. And then memorable, I would say is a photo shoot. And that happened like, I don't know, like February, the Zoom. And then the photo shoot was like a few weeks later maybe, but we're all like covered, right? Like face masks. So like, I obviously know who they are. They don't remember me, even though we had our moment. And I kind of was always, you know, at photo shoots, I'm always like, I leave everyone alone and I'm kind of just doing my job, like, you know, looking at setups and like thinking about where we might use them for all the media placements we have. And I was talking to Karen, who was leading the shoot, who's amazing. And then at some point we started talking at lunch, I think.
That's right.
And then I kept taking my mask down to like talk. She was like, just leave it off. You're right. Yeah. We're good. And I remember thinking afterwards, like, I feel like I met Nessa in a different life.
Absolutely. For sure.
Like I feel like I grew up with you.
Yes.
Like we could just kick it.
Yes.
And then it was just like, it just, that was the start.
It was
of
on.
Everything else.
It
so
was
that
on.
was most memorable for me. Like I remember texting my girlfriend after with my homegirls and I was like, I think I made a friend.
Which is so different in this day and age.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I'm not that kind of person in general that I'm just going to become friends with somebody.
Yeah.
Where I'm at now, I'm a mom, I'm busy. My career is my career. I care so much about it. And I do what I do. I didn't feel like that with you. But again, it just goes to show that the through line in this, how much you cared and you were so thoughtful in hearing about Colin. You took the time to hear what he wanted, you know, to be a part of this, what he wanted people to take away from it. And you trying to think long and hard how to create that, how to get that messaging out to people. And I don't know, I think it just goes to who you are as a person, you know what I mean? And anything that you do, you work so hard in and you care and you have so much pride in it and you want to do the best that you can, which is rare. At the same time, I always remember how you always looked out for your mentees and you would tell them how having a work-life balance was really important as well. But I can only imagine to be where you are and to have achieved the things that you have, you didn't really probably have a lot of balance. Up until maybe you decided, okay, I want to be a mom now.
I have not always been great about that. I have not always practiced what I preached, I will say. So I would say early on in my career, I was like, you know, head down. This is prior to having my daughter. Heads down, like I would work till 1 a.m. I would, you know, be at the event until 1 a.m. and then I would be in the office at 8 a.m. Like I wasn't going to like not come in on time or whatever. But that didn't work. Right. I burnt out so bad. And it just doesn't work. I mean, all the tropes that you always hear, right? You can't burn the candle from both ends. You can't pour from an empty cup. Like I'm going to say them because people need to hear it, you know? And what I have really tried to instill in my team, you know, 2 young women who are 20 years younger than me is like, you know, you don't get your time back. Right. You know, like, yes, work hard. Yes, do the right thing, grind it out. And there's going to be moments where you are going to have to stay late. You're going to have to come in early. Sure. But that should not be the week in, week out. Absolutely not. Right. And I do make it a big point because I am a working outside the home mom. You know, sometimes my flexibility and my ability to catch up at 9 o'clock does not mean I expect you to respond to me at 9 o'clock. And so I would say that, and they would still respond back to me at like 9:12. And I'm like, get off your phone. Right. I told you this is just me catching up because I have to leave at 4 o'clock. Like, so, but there's things happening between 4 and 6 and I want to get back to them. So what I started doing now is like writing it all in drafts and not sending it until the next morning, because I'm like, you don't have self-control.
Right.
But I understand the pressure if your boss is sending you something at night. Oh, I should be logged in at night too. And I'm like, I specifically told you that's not what that means. But
which is nice of you to say that, by the way.
I mean, you guys are young in the city. Go live your life. Go to the gym. Go make mistakes. Like, girl.
It's hard. I'll say for me, my whole career has been my focus other than becoming a mom.
Right.
And so till this very day, you know, someone writes me, and if I see it, I'm writing right away back. That's just me, right? Because I like it done. I don't want to think about it. There's a high possibility I'm going to forget about it, right? I can sit here and write a to-do list of, I got to get back to this person, this. More than likely, I'm not going to get to that to-do list. So if I see it, I'll reply. But, you know, it is something to try to work on. But I say that because early on, probably, again, pre-becoming a mom and early on in your career, I mean, you're out here just working and trying to, you don't get in the positions that you've gotten to without that grind.
There was a lot of travel, especially in sales. I had clients in like Zanesville, Ohio. You know, it wasn't glamorous travel all the time. But yeah, I was traveling on my own. I was traveling postpartum. This is one memorable I remember. I breastfed until my daughter was like 2.5. And I had a conference in Chicago for ACER. It was Hispanic Achiever Corporate Responsibility. I might be butchering that. But the company had nominated me to go as like their representative to this conference. But I'm like, how am I going to do a pumping schedule?
Oh my
Like I was already
goodness.
doing this like at work, and I had like figured out how to do it at work. But now I'm like, okay, I'm going to get on a plane. And this, I mean, if anyone has pumped or breastfed, you don't want to like do it and throw it out. Like I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I hated pumping. I much rather would breastfeed, but obviously I'm not always with my daughter. So I remember going, like reading online. Thank God for other moms who post like tips. And they were like, if you go to a hotel room without a fridge, you can call and request one.
Absolutely.
Did not know that. So sure enough, I called the hotel. I called when I checked in and I said, I need a refrigerator brought up to my room because, and before I could even finish my sentence, the woman said, you don't have to explain anything to me. And I was like, thank you, woman, for reminding me that, because I sure don't.
Right.
And she's like, I'll have it sent up to you right away. And I was like, okay. And she had a little fridge set up, and I just looked at the conference schedule and I was like, okay, I'm going to have to miss 15 minutes of this lecture and I'm going to be okay. Like I had to be okay with like not getting every minute of everything, but just figuring it out. Right. And then I flew home with it, with my ice packs and everything.
That's right. Oh, it's so much work.
Yes.
Oh, my heart goes out to everyone who's experienced this. It was the hardest thing for me.
Yes.
It is really, really, really hard.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about the importance behind networking, because obviously a big part of what you do has, you have been able to develop great relationships with people, right? Mm-hmm. So in this space, share with us 3 tips to build great lasting relationships.
I'm glad you said lasting, because I think a lot of time people think networking is like as many people as possible in an event, in a room. And so if I go to like a big room, sometimes if you know who's going to be in the room, like figure out who you want to connect with and like make that your goal. And then 2, don't be really thirsty. But but my goal when I go to an event is like 1 to 2 connections. And there can be hundreds of people in the room, but I just want to have actual genuine conversation, actually get to know what they do, so that if we do have some sort of a follow-up, it's not just this like, oh yeah, like we were in this circle and everyone said hi and like we're not really connected in that way. And then I kind of had this for the last 1.5 to 2 years, I've been on this like just say yes mode. And that has really brought a lot of blessings and like fortunate things that might have like scared me or like events I wasn't sure about. I'm like, in my head, I'm like, just say yes. And every time I've done that, it's been great. So, and it's been busy, but it's always led to having at least like one genuine connection with someone. I'm pleasantly surprised by how many people, not that are just in my network, but like the network of my network, who have been willing to like open up a Rolodex or like have a conversation if I'm curious. It is so beautiful. I'm hoping it's karma.
I think it's that, and just the aura you give out.
You're a great person.
It is, but it's like like your friend who doesn't know me,
Right?
Yeah.
Who's like willing to be like, yeah, I co-sign PY, and I'm like, oh, or like we met once and had one conversation. They're like, nah, I got you. Like, who do you want to talk to? And I'm like, oh, okay, like
Again,
amazing.
It's you. That's why.
It's
So
you.
Well, thank you. But
what is like one tip? Okay, because it's always kind of weird approaching somebody you don't know.
Yeah.
Right? And trying to make that lasting connection, if you will. So you
Yeah.
guys are all at this big conference party, whatever it is, event,
Yeah.
and you zone in. You see the person. You're like, that's the person I want to talk to and get to know. What do you do at this point? Do you like walk over, tap them on the shoulder, bring a drink, say hi, introduce you? Like, what is your kind of go-to move?
I think I have the gift of gab a little
Yeah.
bit. So like maybe this is my sales training. Right. But yeah, I'll just talk about anything. Like I don't go in on like, what do you do for work? Because people are so much more than that. There's this really great agency based in Brooklyn called Translation LLC, and they have this concept of like majors and minors. So major is like what you do for work during the day, but your minor is like your passion outside of work, like who you are. So like my minor is like cooking and food. Like
That is right.
Yeah.
Which we're going to
We're
talk
gonna talk
about.
about that.
I love food. I love cooking. I love hosting. I love the art of it. I love the practice of it. And so like, I mean, who doesn't love food, right? So we'll talk about what's there. I mean, I think there's one event I just went to last time. There was popcorn on the tables and I slept on the popcorn. This guy finished it in one sitting. It was like a little one. And you're supposed to be like very like demure at these things, right? You're not supposed to house the whole popcorn.
I wouldn't fit in then. I would not
The
fit
waiter
in.
came
especially
back
if it was
over
yummy.
and brought over more popcorn. He was like, you have to have this popcorn. I was like, oh, I'm in. And I was like, why? And he was like, it's truffle popcorn. I was like, say less. I had no idea.
Yeah.
So then I tasted it and it was divine. We
Right.
ended up housing like 3 more bowls of popcorn. And then we were just talking. Oh, what do you do? I'm unemployed. Oh, my friend works for Forbes, Forbes Media documentary thing that's opening up. Why don't you talk to this person? Okay,
That's
great.
awesome.
So it just becomes a throughway in. But I don't know. I just start asking people questions. And then eventually we get to something that we can just go off on. And sometimes there's not a connection. And it's totally okay to be like, I'm going to go grab a drink.
Right.
Yeah. And also the thing that happens sometimes is people are not there to network for work. They're there looking for love. So there's an interesting way to kind of like split up those things. But like hot tip for any single people out there, that's another place that people look for connections.
Really? Is
Yeah.
that what's happening out here in
Yes.
the world? Well, listen, I think it's probably better than a dating app, right? Don't you think?
I've never dated in the world of apps.
Oh,
Right.
I'm like old school.
It's a disaster out here.
I've heard stories.
I mean, when Colin and I got together, no, there were dating apps. Katrina, there dating apps? I mean, Instagram and Twitter.
Yeah.
There was still social media
There
at that
was,
time.
but at
It was
that
like mi
point,
gente.
remember meeting somebody like on MySpace or something?
Yes.
Those relationships, they'd be too embarrassed to say that they met
Yes.
online.
Yes.
But
yes.
now it's like the stigma's gone. Like
I
you can
agree.
meet
I
at
think
a
there was
dating
still,
app.
it was like eHarmony,
Yeah.
like Mi Gente, MySpace, like those things.
I heard that you can find real love on eHarmony. Somebody
Are
told
they
us
sponsoring
actually a
this
mutual-
podcast?
No. Okay, we're not going to give them credit. I'll say one of the different companies, a specific one, actually Katrina, a mutual friend of ours, met their husband on it. And
No, don't put them on blast if they don't have it out like
Tell me
that.
yeah.
after.
you know
You
who.
tell me later.
But yeah, and she swears by it. I just
That's so
remember her
awesome.
really talking about it. Married, has a child, and it was
eHarmony?
Why would you? She just
Oh,
told
I'm sorry.
us to be plugging it.
This is the marketing
Yes,
person
I
telling you
forgot,
they're
I
not
forgot.
sending you a check.
Sorry. We'll cut that all out.
But one of these companies, yes, was the foundation of how she found love,
Dude,
and it really working out for
my
them.
cousin married, dating app. Another friend of
Really?
mine married, dating app. Like it's real. Like because you know what? There's so many times where you go out and you might not meet somebody, or
Right.
it's a whole different environment, situation, and you're just kind of like grabbing a drink, going, having a dance, going, doing whatever you do, and it's not like you're not fostering a real relationship. So I can see with dating apps how you can get both. You can get the casual if you want, but you can also get 5 different messages a day before you decide to go out, and you're like, okay, you've come through my gut check of you're cool. Let's meet in
Yeah.
person now. So I can see it. I mean, I probably would be too scared because Nessa keeps talking about background check.
You have to
And I
nowadays.
get so scared hearing about Like we have friends that be like, oh, I'm going to go on a date with some guy I met on a dating app. And we'd be like, yo, share your location with somebody.
But what's the difference between that and like meeting someone at a bar and then going out with them?
Nothing.
You should background check them too.
Oh, agree. Okay, I thought you were saying that one was different.
No,
I was like,
background check everybody.
Casual dating is so scary to me. Like I got lucky enough where Tone was my friend at work, and obviously Nessa had already vetted him. We like know.
I actually don't like how you set that up.
What?
I was his friend first before you even existed in our building for work.
So Tone was my friend at work, so I knew him. That was already Nessa's friend.
Okay.
And Nessa was like, y'all got really good chemistry. So she was already hitting.
So you're a matchmaker.
I am a matchmaker.
She is a matchmaker.
Okay.
So she was already hitting us with that. You guys have good chemistry. So I could not imagine going somewhere and just, talking to somebody and being like, hey, okay, now come see where I live.
No.
When I met you when we went on 2 dates.
It's scary. It's scary out here.
Bro, see where I live. Like I know people now who will not let you drop them off to their home because they don't want to see where you live.
Correct.
It's too scary. Being a mother, what are some of your biggest fears?
It up. It's the first one.
You're right.
I have a lot of fears, but I would say like I try really hard to not let my fears stifle her.
Yes.
Like I'm trying really, really hard to be conscious of celebrating her and like having her grow into who she's supposed to be and not something I'm imposing on her.
Correct.
And that's really hard. You have to really rein yourself in. But so I don't know if I have like fears other than like, I don't want to create trauma for you.
Right.
I don't want to create these moments because I think there's a lot of awakening that's happening right now with like gentle parenting and doing things differently than have been done in prior generations and even our generation. And we're just trying to be more cognizant of how we move forward with our kids.
It's hard.
It's very hard.
With your friends, do you have open conversations with them? And are they honest with you? If they're like, okay, Patricia, you are imposing marketing strategy like on your daughter.
She loves advertising.
Does she?
She does.
Is it your fault?
Probably.
Okay, so
probably.
Are your friends honest with you, or do they kind of just tiptoe a little bit around it?
No, we keep it real.
Oh, good.
We keep it very real. I mean, there's moms and non-moms in our friend circle, and we've been real about when it's really hard. Yeah. When we're struggling and when we don't love motherhood, because God forbid you don't love motherhood every minute of every day publicly. It's like not something you can say out loud.
Right. Oh, yeah, no.
If you think your kid's being an one day, like you can't say things like that. But like those moments happen. We're human. And so I feel like I didn't get enough people being honest with me before I became a mom. And so if you ask me, I will tell you.
That's
so don't ask me if you don't want to know what happens.
Right. I agree. 100%. Actually, Katrina and I had this conversation. I felt like she was fake when she became a mom towards me.
Don't get me started.
And did not really share the scaries of it all. But
long story.
But
because it's not true. That's why.
And no, but I do feel like in general, it's hard for moms to share that because the minute you open your mouth about, hey, this is hard about motherhood, being a parent XYZ, it's just you are attacked for that. And it's hard. And I think it actually is creating a very toxic space amongst people, especially we see it on social media, to have open conversations because that conversation could possibly help someone so much.
Oh, 100%.
In such, who may be facing a really hard time. So it's okay to share the struggles. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's hard. It's not easy. And we get through it. So let's pretend.
Oh boy.
I love let's pretend.
Nessa hypothetical.
Yeah, you love the hypotheticals. Did you think you could leave without doing hypotheticals? Okay.
You better go in. This better be a really squeeze her hypothetical.
No, it can't because there's nothing really crazy about Patricia.
Right. And she's so even with her response. I know it's going to be a great answer.
Okay, let me ask you. Your child doesn't want to go to college. Decides, maybe I just want to try to get into the marketing world off top, work from the bottom up, and just go about it that way. What are you going to say? Mom, I don't want to go to college. I got it. I got it from you. Let me do this.
I'm going to be like, first of all, what you got from me was from like 1972. Marketing has surely changed in the last 20 years. You're going to need to do some other things. I might let her try it.
Okay. All right, Mom.
Try
okay,
it.
progressive.
But if things are not happening for you, maybe we'll put a time frame on it. You know, you get 2 years to try it. That doesn't happen, you got to go get some training. Because I don't have marketing training in terms of my undergrad, but I've done a lot of coursework between then and now. I actually just finished my mini MBA, a mini one.
Still, it doesn't matter.
But I've done a lot of like coursework in between to catch up. Trends are changing, you know, digital media, like things I don't have exposure to at work. I just want to get better at. Like you just have to constantly be refining your craft. So I feel like if you're about something, like be about it, right? If you want to be a music producer, then you should be up in the studio every week.
Right.
Like be about it. Don't give me this like half in, half out.
Right.
All right. You want to go try to do it on yourself? Go try.
I have a Katrina hypothetical. Okay, so child comes home.
Yes.
I met the love of my life. I'm ready to get married.
No.
But you do not agree at all, and you don't think this person is right for your child.
How old is she?
Of age.
No. Because I'm like, if you're 21, you're not getting married.
25, but you still do
25?
not think that person is the right person for.
Is there a reason why?
You just got a gut check feeling.
What do you do?
What do you do?
You share the sentiment?
Yeah,
Okay.
I would.
Keep it real?
I did this with a friend of mine.
Ooh.
Are you guys still friends?
Yes.
Wow.
But I think what I told her was like, I'm going to tell you what no one else is going to be willing to tell you, but everyone feels this way. I don't think that this person is right for you. And I feel like as your friend, I'm obligated to say something. Now, it's your choice. You're going to decide to do what you want. You want to marry this person. I'm going to be fully supportive. We'll never have this conversation again. But I feel like I need to say something to you as your friend. I don't think this is a good choice. And she said, thank you very much for telling me to my face. I'm still going to marry him. And I said, okay.
Did they get married?
Yeah.
Are they still together?
Yeah.
Is she happy?
Yeah.
Good. So you were wrong?
I still felt the way I felt at the time.
Hey.
I love how
So-
you even positioned it. You're like, hey, I'm only going to say this once.
Yeah.
Say whatever
Yeah.
you want, but I want you to hear
she's
me.
a grown-ass
Yeah,
woman. It's her
right.
life. But I was just like, I also felt bad. I'm like, everyone else is saying this, but nobody's saying it to you.
Right.
But like, if I'm really your friend, this is a life-changing decision about
That's
who
right.
you
Oh,
marry
yeah.
and who you decide to have children with. So I'm like, I'm going to say this to you. It's coming from love. And then I helped her buy her wedding dress. Like I was like, I'm committed if you're committed, but I just need to make this statement before we move forward.
Do you think she told her husband?
I have no idea. We never spoke about it again
You have to move
to this
in.
day.
Okay,
Wow.
so now back to Katrina's hypothetical. Do you tell your daughter straight up?
Yeah. I mean, if I told my best friend, right?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
But are you going to do it the same approach? Like, hey,
yeah.
yeah.
And like, I'm here for I hope things go well. I hope I'm wrong. I'm here.
Right.
You know, I told my daughter, even to this day, my mom said it to me one time and she was like, you lived inside of me. Like there is nothing
Right.
you can do that's going to break this bond.
Right.
I tell her all the time,
Yeah.
you know, like I'm here for you. I've made some poor choices in my life.
We all have.
Right.
And everyone will.
Yeah.
And that's the scary part about
Yeah.
this, right? As being parents now, you just think about, wait a minute. Wow. They're about to embark on whatever journey. They're going to make mistakes because
Yes.
we're humans. And how are we going to react when it happens?
The thing is, though, too, and somebody told me this early on in my motherhood, is like, your job as the mom is to literally have them grow away from you.
Right.
Like, your job is not to keep them. I know it's
this
heartbreaking.
is very hard on Katrina.
Hurt my heart.
But that is your job, is to help
is
them
hard.
grow independently, to foster,
Oh, man.
their lives. Like, that is our job. And so, and it starts from an early age.
Yeah.
When they're like, I can get my own shoes on. You're like, oh.
Right.
But that is your job, and like you're doing it well. So like I can't put her in a bubble as much as I would love to for the rest of her life. Like she's got to make some choice. Somebody's just gonna fall on her face.
Yeah. Oh, God.
Ask me again when it actually happens.
I know.
Yeah. Don't save this clip. Don't show it to her.
No, it's hard. It's hard. And I feel like we all have the right intentions, right? We all
Yeah.
are saying the right things right now. I just hope we all can apply it when that time happens, We'll see. So when your child goes over to their friend's house or whatever,
Yes.
do they judge their friends, parents cooking or anything like that? Because you can cook and we see it all over
do.
your Instagram. So you know, is your child like, oh gosh, okay, I'll eat this to be nice, but really I can't wait to go home to eat because mom made it better?
She is not bougie about it. She doesn't eat a lot of my bougie food also.
What?
She like will reject me.
Send it to us.
Right. She don't want to come over, call us.
You know, they go through phases, right? Like, I mean, she really does love salad, which is really great, but she'll eat like a very particular salad, you know, that like has the dressing that I bought you. Actually, the vinegar dressing. But something she's like not down for it, mom. And sometimes I'll push and I'll say like, you have to at least try it. Cause I never wanted a kid who was just, no shade, but like eating like chicken fingers and fries all the time. Like I hate the kids menu at a restaurant.
Right.
I'm like, why isn't it just like a little version of a grown-up menu?
Right.
Like, why are we just feeding them burger? Like these are not the choices. And we live in New York City. Like this is like food mecca.
Right.
So I tried even from a young age, like I wasn't making 2 meals. Like this is the meal. If you choose not to eat this, you can either find like an apple or something like that. But like, I'm not a short order cook, you know, like I'm working, this is too much. But sometimes I will give her choice and I'll say Dylan's choice for dinner tonight.
This or that or whatever.
No, and she'll be like breakfast for dinner and we'll have like waffles and bacon.
Nice.
And I'm like, okay.
Choose the whole menu.
She can choose.
Right.
That was one thing I asked her the other day, thanks to Instagram. There was some mom who posted like that they asked their kid, what's the hardest part about being a kid? And I don't remember what the response was, but it was so insightful that I was like, I'm going to ask her.
What was it? Do you remember?
And she said, it was only a few weeks ago. She said, she paused and then she was like, it's hard because everyone's like the boss of you and you never get to choose anything.
Wow.
And I was like, that's valid.
Right.
So then I was like, what would you choose if you were the boss? And she was like, well, I would like eat pancakes and I would wear my pajamas and I would sleep in and she just wanted like a lazy day. Cause she's like, we're always doing all these things. We're going to the supermarket. We're going to swim. We're going to gymnastics. Like, she's like, she basically was like, I want a day to just like lay around. And I was like, you know what? I need that too.
Right.
So I was like, you know what? You have a couple days off of school next week. You're going to have 2 lazy days.
I love it.
And she was like, I'm so down. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but
I love it. I love it. PY, thank you for making time today.
Oh my God, of course.
Have a conversation about marketing and, you know, the power behind it and what that can do to a story or to a product or whatever. Thank you for being so good to Colin and I. We met you, we fell in love with you, and now you're just stuck with us.
Yay.
But just the stuff that you have done on your journey, the heights that you have reached and continue to reach, we are just happy to be able to witness it and see it. I'm excited, you know, for your next venture. I know you're going to do just great things. Don't forget about us.
Oh my God.
And honestly, one day this show is going to be really incredible and we're going to have you working with us full time, okay?
Yay.
It's just like your budget's really high right now, but that's okay.
I'm
That's
expensive.
okay. We're a little mom and mom store for now, but you are amazing. And I really appreciate all the insight and, you know, just really sharing the real about your journey and what it takes to be, you know, in these spaces to make impact. So come back again.
Anytime.
Don't forget us and share more gems with us. And thank
food.
you.
And food. Share.
Food. Next time, food.
Food and gems.
Absolutely.